I'm going to introduce you to John Wellman, who'll talk to us about flint napping.
Pick you guys up too well here. I'm going to have to probably... How's that? Not yet, right, John? You got to come over just a little bit. Yeah, there you go, right like that.
Okay, then we still aren't centered yet. So, like, come this way, Betsy. Be more centered.
Is that a good angle for you? You want some body and leg movements in there?
No, just get up.
Arrowheads, and why?
Well, I started about 30 years ago when I was a boy. I was impressed with the form for some reason. I used to doodle on my school papers with it. And then as time went on, we had some local flints around there, small ones along the railroad track, so I just practiced banging away. And then in 1958, I picked up a book called The Ancient Art of Making Arrowheads by Leonard Haslag from Missouri. And then from there, I sort of followed his techniques, and over the past 30 years, I've made quite a few points. In the, mostly in the last 12 years, it's been my greatest study period and most intensive work.
Oh. Who has influenced you in this pursuit?
My friend Raouel Ibarra, I met him a few years ago, and we got together, and I'd say he was probably my main influence. I've studied with other people also. I've worked with J.B. Solberger, but I'd say it's mainly Raouel.
Is there a particular area in which you specialize?
Yes, I specialize mainly in paleo points and fluted points, and that particular group.
How did you and Raouel get together?
Well, we just met about 12 or so years ago, and both had a common interest. We worked on different techniques. I saw that he had this amazing technique of, or ability to look at a stone and be able to tell how it was taken apart. So in time, we got together and discussed various tools, and over the course of time, I eventually came up with a book.
Oh, so that's how your book, Sequential Flaking, came about?
Yes, basically, working for about the last 12 years on a very solid basis. Mr. Ibarra and I went through all of these techniques, and we feel that this particular name, Sequential Flaking, applies because it has to do with the sequence of tools moving from the larger hammerstones down to the pressure flakers, and also the size of the lithic piece being worked will vary according to which tool is being worked. So, all in all, that's basically how it came about.
Who today is helping you to perpetuate the craft?
Well, not necessarily helping me, helping everyone along the way. There's some great flint nappers around today. One of the most famous is J.B. Solberger, Solly, from Texas. He's a great fluting expert, along with Gene Titmus. Betsy Skinner and her husband Peter Ainsworth, Rob Bonasison, Garrett Callahan, Bruce Bradley, D.C. Waldorf, and his wife Valerie, Ray Harwood, Jim Moriarty, Buddy Spilly, Rod Briner, John Parker, who's our local archaeologist here. And then there's the Danish boys, Bo Madsen, Jay Pellegrin. We have a friend up here in the Hooper Range, Paul Donahue, one of the better flint nappers around. Bob Patton, Jeff Flanagan, George Bradford from Canada. People all over the place. And I've also received letters from people, from more obscure people that haven't really written many articles or anything, but they're putting out some good points, like Dale Crone.
So there's quite an interest.
All in all, there's quite an interest, and the interest is growing all the time due to, I think, has a lot to do with the Native American spiritualism movement and the going back to the earth.
I see. What areas do you think modern flint nappers should explore?
Well, I think there needs to be more work with fluting, more work with effigies, salute and laurel leaves, replications. Why did people flute? This industry went on for several thousand years and then stopped all of a sudden. I doubt it was just for shafting. I think that there's a need for more work in the Danish daggers and Danish axes and Egyptian knives, as Waldorf and Callahan have done quite a bit of work on. There's quite a bit of open field. There's a lot of things even in notching, serrations, looking at the Hohokam civilization.
What are the commercial potentials in this field?
Well, commercially, today there are people, Eric Callahan, one I believe, that are making blades for surgical use.
Oh.
And they found that they heal much faster, and the wounds will heal faster, and with less scarring. Don Crabtree, the famous flint knapper, actually had surgery once or twice with stone tools.
Really? And may I ask, what are you doing presently?
Well, presently, one thing I like to do is I like to go to flint knap inns. We have them all around the country, and that's basically where people get together and bang on rocks for about 1, 2, 3, 5 days in a row, and you get to meet some very great people. You also have the ability to learn new techniques and trade techniques, trade ideas for new tools. It's quite a nice thing. I'm involved a bit in writing articles, and presently I'm working with the Bureau of Indian Affairs and in Lake County, California, JOM program, teaching arrowhead making and flint knapping techniques. I work for the state parks, Anderson Marsh State Park, where we're doing a dig. It's gone back to about 2,000 to 4,000 years with fines up to about 10,000. That's in the summertime.
Sounds very interesting.
Well, thank you. Why don't we bang on some rock? First of all, I'd like to give special thanks to B. Wellman, Bill and Lenny Tony, J.B. Solberger, and Elizabeth Skinner and Peter Ainsworth, and Cliff Moda from Elim, who is doing the Elim Indian Colony here, who is doing the photography for us. First of all, the first thing that we're concerned ourselves with is safety. A lot of people just take it for granted and just start banging away, and the next thing they know they have big cuts or they have a piece of caught in their eye. If you're not careful, you can cut yourself very easily. It's best to wear hard-toe shoes, protective goggles, long-sleeve shirt, and some thick pants. Leather hand pads are good. I wear gloves, at least for some of the work I do. When you get down to pressure flaking later on, then you might not be using as much protection. Also, if you ever get a flake in your eye, it's very important. Do not rub or irritate it, because it can just cut your eye. It's best to use some kind of a technique like where people can lower your eyelid a few times like that, and it'll usually work its way right out. It's also good to have a first aid kit handy, and it's a very good idea to know how to stop bleeding. Okay, now we'll go outside.
Good. Here's the tip. This area here is the point area. Along here we have what is called an edge. This is the face and blade, this part. These little squiggles up here are called serrations. Right in here is the neck of the arrowhead. This whole area is called a stem. This is the base. Part sticking out on the side here is called a tang, as well as this. This is the tang. This is a barb. It sticks down like that. The whole area sticking out is called a shoulder. And whenever you have your tang hanging down lower in two different places like that, and it goes up into the middle, that's called a bifurcation. There's also other parts here. First of all, you have, this is the Clovis point, and you have, this end down here is the platform end or proximal end. This is the platform sticking out here. If you have, I don't know if you can see the flaking lines or not, but they meet like this. That's chevron, either up or down. They can be parallel across. They can be parallel diagonal, either direction. And, or they can just meet in the middle straight across like that. This area that is a chip knocked out of the bottom here is called a flute. Okay. Now, I'll,
First chapter in the book, hammerstones. Basically, hammerstones are used to take off large chunks of rock in the lithic reduction sequences. The larger the piece of lithium material that you're trying to reduce, the bigger the rock that you're going to have to use to do it. There are many different ways that people approach this particular technique. Mr. Ibarra and myself have spent quite a few years working at this, and the ways that we're going to be going to show you are basically the optimum safety methods. Also, it's a matter of what is called feather terminations also. In other words, when we're knocking a flake off, we don't want it to dig into the material. We want it to be very end of the flake just to slide across, like just feathering out. So most of the techniques we use will cause these type of fractures to occur. On a flat surface, like this particular one is, you look first of all, and you see where the piece bulges out the most. Now this surface is flat, and this is the surface I'm going to be hitting off of. There's a bit of an angle going this way. You always flake the high side first. Okay, so now starting in here, wherever I feel that it protrudes the most, I'll see a point where it sticks out. Now instead of hitting right on that point, I hit just before that point. Now the way to hold the piece for maximum safety is to take it in your hand, twist it back like this. So when you're hitting, you're driving flakes away from your body, back there like this. I know a lot of people prefer to sit on a chair with some leather on their leg and hit away at it like this. Two reasons I'm not too much in favor of this particular technique. One is that it can cause flakes to dig into your leg, and secondly, you have to be careful that you don't cause hinge fractures or these deep dug-in fractures that are impossible to recover from one way or the other. Okay, now starting just before the point where it sticks out the furthest. Now, whenever you do a flat surface, you start with at the left-hand side and work to the right. Then you work back to the left and back to the right until the piece is small enough. If you're working in a regular surface, like an amorphous surface, you work from right to left, looking for the farthest out protrusion and also looking where it sticks up the highest and out the furthest. Same idea, you hit just before the peak where it sticks out the most. You hit just before it, and you continue along, hitting just before each new peak formed. When you work on a regular surface, you work from right to left. When you work a flat surface, you work from left to right. Now my first blow
creates what is called a flake. Now this flake can be made into a relatively decent sized dart point. Now the first blow that I took, I gave a slight outward angle. Now, if you can see this, where it sticks out the most here, at this point right here. Now instead of hitting right on the point, I'm going to hit it just before it again. This time, however, instead of slightly throwing my hand that way to the left, I'm going to throw this one to the right, the next one to the left a bit, the next one to the right, chasing down this ridge. You don't have to hit it hard. That's one thing you have to remember. So there's a constant backward and forward motion. I'm getting small flakes now that bird points can be made out of. Now, once you've completed going one direction, from the left to right on a flat surface, for example, then you work back. You look again for your widest, most protruding place, go to there, and hit. Now remember, you don't have to hit it hard. And it's a constant backward and forward motion. This will hone your piece down for you. Now continuing along these lines for several more rounds, the piece will become thin enough. This is some poor cortex material that's being knocked out. But after going back several times back and forth, it'll be small enough that you can move on to the next tool. Now there are a couple other techniques that people use. One is called the Danish technique. And that's where you take an ovate type rock, one that is not so, one that's not so flat. I prefer flat basalts, pretty hard grained basalts for larger bifaces, for larger biface production. Oh, one of the reasons is because you can get in there sideways or come across with the mass of the stone. Now the other technique, which is sort of a Danish style, I picked this up from Leonard Haslag. You hold the stone in your hand and you very loosely hold the hammerstone. Now the lithic material being worked right here is obsidian, but you can work cherts, jaspers, flints, chalcedonies, bloodstone, all many different types of stones, and glass can be worked also, even ice. For a hammerstone, you usually prefer some kind of a grainy stone, preferably something in the sandstone range to fine-grained basalt. Now in this technique, you look where the point protrudes the furthest, sticking out, and instead of hitting just before the point, you hit right on it. The stone is held very loosely in the hand. So when you come down, most of the weight is just the stone itself hitting. It doesn't have to be hard. Now I've got this on my knee like this in order to give extra support. You can see that it just will pop out. You just keep working up to where you see the point sticking out. Now for larger pieces, technique is still the same as the regular billeting. You stand on this side. If it's a flat surface, you move left to right. If it's a amorphous surface, then you have to work right to left. If the piece is really big, you may have to have 2 men hold it. You may have to throw backwards like this. But anyway, that keeps the flakes from hitting you in the face or anything like that. Now, say like right here, the surface is flat. This is where it protrudes the most. So just an inch before, that's where I'll make my hit, of where the protrusion is. I can hold this like this. And you can lay your rock right on the spot you want to hit it. So make sure you got it in the right place, and then pull up a nice flake. Okay, we'll move on to the next tool. Okay, here's a little chart I've drawn about how to knock off these flakes like from a flat surface. So like you're holding it like this, and you're looking at the top of the piece. Okay, you look all the way down the piece to where it's sticking out the most, like right here, where the red line is pointing up. Okay, now you're working left to right first with anytime you have a flat jump surface. You hit on the spot just before the highest most protrusive point. After that flake's knocked out, the edge will look something like this. You go for the next point. Go for the next point of protrusion, and then like it, which will be a flake scar left. Right in here will be a scar. Here will be the new furthest most protruding platform. Instead of hitting right on it, again you hit right before it, just before it. Okay, now I'll show you what to do once you've gotten the piece thinned down enough that you can get it with the hammerstone, that you can get at it with what I call a globular pebble. Should be pretty much circular, globular in shape. Look for the thickest part of the piece on the edge up here, and you work into the thickest part. And we're going to do something called alternate beveling. Now, starting at the corner here, I'll hold the piece down. Now you notice this is a carpet swatcher. They make very good padding. So do old inner tubes from tire leg pads. Now you strike a blow in one corner and you turn it over. And when you turn it over, you use the remaining, the negative scar, or the place where you just knocked out a flake. You use that for the seat to hit your next, or the platform to hit your next flake off. Again, you don't have to hit this hard. Turn it, again another one. Now, about 2 million years ago, in East Africa, there was in Olduvai Gorge area, pebble tools were found. They were like pebbles that would have like these wavy edges. And whenever you see that, you know that they were worked by man. That goes about 2 million years ago, in the era of the. So basically, what we've been doing with this globular pebble is knocking off an angle one way, coming up back about the midpoint of that angle, banging it off that way, coming back, same thing, back and forth until the whole edge looks like a wave. Now at this point, I've gone all the way around, and the whole thing has formed a wavy edge. Now from this wavy edge, you can take your flakes off. Best tool to use at this time is a direct percussion tapping hammer. Okay, the direct percussion tapping hammer, basically, it's a piece of antler on the end of a stick, or it can be an antler itself that goes out here. The best part to cut is where the antler meets the bone, and get part of that bone. The best antlers are the kind that fall off of deer, moose, elk, naturally, not the ones that are killed. Okay, so first thing you have to do, now that we have this wavy edge, is grind it. The reason that you grind it is because these platforms become so sharp. These little waves here, each wave is a platform. They become so sharp that they crush before the full weight of the tool can carry through it, and it causes bad fractures. Okay, now the basic idea is, with this tool, a lot of people say, oh, take and bang it like a hammer. But actually, if you hold it up in front of you like this, looking for a protrusion, where it protrudes quite a bit, you hold the hammer like this, and the blow is made across like this. You try not to hit your hand or your arm with your other hand. That'll show you that you're going at the right angle. It's best to place this right against there, right against the edge. And then when you take off your flake, you come across that way. You can see it releases a very long flake. Now you can work each little curve in a row that is sticking out either to the left or right hand side. Or you can work the one on the left, then go up to the one on the right, work the one on the left. The book explains many different sequences that these particular flakes can be taken off, and the different sequences will form different kinds of points. I'll take off one more like this to give you an idea. Now also, you can make these out of antler. The size in the book that the tool is drawn is the basic size also. Of course, you can always have bigger and smaller versions of everything like that. This is just a rock hafted onto a pretty soft stone, hafted onto a twig. Same technique, hold it against the piece, and when you come across, and your flake's released. Okay. In the modern tools, you can make a little hammer out of brass, copper, or aluminum. Same idea, same. Just remember, not too hard. Let your hand glide through, and the flake comes off. Okay, what we have here is what I call a double curve chart. Now, at a certain point, you can alternate bevel the piece. Now, if you care to further refine it, you can increase each bevel outward by shaping it like cracking an egg on, where the motion is like, in the hardness is like cracking an egg on top of it. This to increase these waves outward further. So the way you do this, pick the protrusion. Now see, if the curve is going up like that, continue that way with it. Make it, just exaggerate. Now same thing like this one then. This one's sticking up that way. So what I'm going to do is, if I hit it this way, it'll make it stick up higher. Turning the piece over, working each platform as I go around in order. Now this is going to produce a big wave. Most of the early tools found were things that looked something like this. They're called hand axes. With the advent of Homo habilis about 500,000 years ago. We have a whole structure of people working with these particular wave structures, a whole class of people working with these different wave structures and creating different types of what are called hand axes. They could be used for digging or whatever. They're usually pretty thick, but they kept the wave until about 150,000 years ago. Then they started peeling the wave off to make a sharp edge, and that's when the Abyssinian age came in. Before this whole period is called Acheulean. This is mostly Eastern Africa, but it goes into Europe. And here we have a lot of bad cortex on here. So definitely going to have some problems, but I'm not going to worry about it at this point. Now, if we want to continue around and emphasize this whole curve. Now, once we have the curve made, you'll know, and also in the book, there are different places on the curve that you can hit in order to form longer flakes, shorter flakes, thinner flakes, wider flakes. And I would suggest studying the chart and learning these different techniques. I'll take one off. Now, one of the curves that I've double curved, I'll remove a flake with the direct percussion tapping hammer. Okay. Now we'll move on to the... Okay, the next tool that we use is called a forward billet. Regular billeting, you billet towards yourself, and the flakes are pulled in this direction. Forward billet, flakes go off this way. Now you can use large billets, or you can work into smaller ones. Usually your regular billet, when you start billeting, will be bigger than your forward billet. Your forward billet is not necessarily a big tool, but it can pull big flakes. Now, you hit on the same points that you're going to be hitting, that you'd hit on if you were hitting with a percussion tapping hammer or any other tool. Now, this is a basic motion. You want to get it on a lot of padding. You want to set it down, and you set up your angle. Now, whenever I'm hitting, like, if I can see the edge, and if I see any of the face on the other side, then I tilt it just a bit forward until I just see the edge, but I don't see the face. And this goes for like any type of... now, whenever you're hitting down on a surface like this, you also have to worry about flakes popping. Now, this is basically best done on the ground. You hold your finger on top of the billet, place it against the edge, and the flakes release like this, provide this big, long, flat. Okay, the next thing we're going to show is how to use a billet. Again, the butt end of the antler's coming in. Best to have as much of the bone as possible. Now, I've pointed this one up, and that's so I can get into places with it also, so you can round them off. Now, most people, when they do any billeting, they put it on top of their leg and they hit like this. That kind of an idea. I don't. I use this technique right here. I put my leg up. It's even better if you're on a couch because you get that rebound action from the underneath. Spot where you want to hit it. Lay your tool against it. Now see, I have this sitting up in here. My finger's on the top of it, and when I come across, make contact, follow through. Okay, that's basically it. Continue down the line, thinning the piece out. if you read the book and you follow the different beveling and sequence patterns, because it's just moving your bevel off a little bit one way or the other can change the way that your point's going to be, the way that your point will come out. Grinding is always important too. You can use the tool that you're using, or you can use a hammer stone, or you may have to use both. Anyway, that's the basic technique. I'm going to give you a little demonstration of freehand percussion, and this is used mostly on Clovis, some Clovises, dark points, smaller spear points, things like that. Just take the billet in your hand, hold the piece out. Now, it's the same thing. I look for the edge, and then I tilt it down until I just don't see the underside of the edge. And at that point, usually striking straight into it will give you your angle. Release this long flick. Now, if you grind away, like this is the face you're going to take it off. You grind first in the opposite direction, then in the direction, then in the opposite direction, and you hit again. Your flake should release with not too much pressure coming on it. Pretty flat flakes. I call this the ho-ho-com style. If you've ever seen their points, they're really incredible. They're like icicles and lightning bolts with deep, heavy serrations. They're very big. Culture lived in Arizona in about 1100 AD. Very advanced society, too. Anyway, that's your basic technique. Now, every time you can you can reset up that weight for every tool that you come across. Every time you come onto a new tool, you can set up either a single bevel or the double bevel. And that makes it so you can control the size of flakes, the flake length, many different things. It's called platform preparation. That's one type of platform preparation. Okay. Now I'm going to discuss the punch. That's the next tool in our sequential line here. Now the punch can be made out of an antler, a little smaller than this, and be quite powerful. You can make them out of larger antlers with blunting the end, and use them on cores and rock, and bigger rocks, knocking them off pieces on a surface like that, and then punch against the edge, or punch into their hand, something like that. The way that we found it seems to work the best. And this is a copper bait, this is a copper tool. The way this seems to work best is to lay the tool against the platform, hold it solidly. Now when I'm going to flake, instead of flaking in or down against the surface, I'm going to flake outward and in order to cause feather termination. Now say like, well let me pop this out first and then we'll go with this bigger piece. Like this, and basically that's your movement. Flaking out works real good for digging notches. And it won't hinge unless your angle's set up wrong, but it won't hinge because of pressure against the face. Now say like, if you want to knock off a bigger one, you can get down on the ground, but I'll do it up here. And you hold it like this. This is our Aboriginal friends use this in Australia. They hold it like this or between their heels. You set the punch against the platform. Now some people just use a billet for a tapping hammer. This happens to be plum. It was made by a friend of mine a few years ago for me. I find them a lot better. You can hone this end down, so one end's smaller, one end's larger. That end you can use for fluting, but either one works well. And I would suggest making one of these instead of trying to beat on it with a billet or something. It's always good to grind your edges. I know there's a certain group of people, they always grind mainly towards the direction that they want to take off the flake. Now, always look at where the center of the mass is. Look along the edge and see where the center of the mass is. If you have a platform on the downside, then that's what you shoot for. Look for the center, and if you have something hanging lower, those will become your platforms, and that's what you go for. Now, the way we use what's called lenticular hammerstone. Hold a mini hand like this. And what we do is we drag it across the surface this way in striking. Again, you don't have to hit it hard. Also, when you're working a point up and you get towards like it, you can see this starting to form a triangular. You get up towards the tip. Better not to hit at that point or down here by the bases. If it's pretty uniform thickness, it's better not to hit it. It's better to wait to go to your next tool and then use the next tool down the line. Now sometimes you're going to have to go back one tool, like I might have to go back to the punch to knock off maybe one flake and then finish with this stone. Or you may have to go one tool ahead, like to a certain type of pressure flaker to thin it out at that point. Anyway, this is your basic stroke. A lot of times, too, if you notice, like, if you go across the surface like that, the amorphous flake stroke, it can save the piece from breaking and keep it bigger longer. When I first picked up Leonard Haslake's book, The Ancient Art of Making Arrowheads, 1958, in the museum in Chicago, one tool that was described in there, and this is a picture of it, it's called the twist flaker. I can bring it a little closer here. Okay. And then I'll show you the next page where it describes the use, how the tool was used also. Now this particular tool is pretty much the lost tool as far as arrowhead makers today go. For some reason, it just the knowledge of this tool did not pass on, or it wasn't popular. But for those of you who know that they found a complete toolkit in North Carolina, and the one tool that it did contain, other than some deer toe pressure flakers and billet, was a twist flaker. So anyway, I've had the privilege of using this tool for many, many years, and I found it definitely to be the best tool in my kit. Now, it's best to take the end of an antler, again where it's close to the bone, and you dig a notch in it about a 1/4 inch wide and 1 inch deep. Now, if you can't get antlers, you can take 2 pieces of aluminum and just bond them together like that. I put a piece of wood in between there. You can dig it out of a piece of copper, that works. You can also tie 2 smaller antlers together, or tie 2 antlers together and get the same basic idea for a tool. Same basic tool. Okay, now the way this works. Oh, one more thing. Is like on my forward billet and my bigger billets, every once in a while I'll put a large twist flaker on there in case I have to shape a platform or or make it, or when I'm double curving, that you make the curve perfectly smooth and one just flowing into the other one. This tool can help for that, for edge preparation on larger pieces also. Okay, the idea of this tool, you can pull amazing flakes across the surface, and because the way the tool's set up, you can keep from hinge fracturing. Now, for instance, on this piece, I haven't even set up the edge, but I'm going to take it from a natural edge, which is one way to flake, although most of your very best arrowheads were preformed platforms and spend probably more time making the edging than they were knocking off the flakes. Okay, now what you do is you place the tool against the edge of the piece. Okay, now with my left hand I'm using a towel here, which I find a very good thing to use. And then the right hand, you hold the tool like this. Now pushing against the inside of the leg and the inside of this leg, I'm going to use my legs as a vice device, pushing in both directions in order to increase more pressure. Now the idea is that you let the tool catch into the edge. You don't get it underneath and try to pry like that. Now when the stroke is made, the pressure is built up, you're pushing straight into the edge. The pressure builds up, and just at the point you feel that you have the right amount of pressure, you give a little upward pry. That'd be inward towards yourself, upward and inward. No, these are going right across the whole surface, no problem. This is on an unprepared edge. But anyway, the main thing is that you understand how to use the tool. Pry pressure of both legs. The firmness against the inside of the knee thigh area, and bringing the piece straight into the tool and the tool into the piece. And just at the point that you're ready to release the flake, it's just a slight upward pry, and the flake just pops right up. This is a picture of Ishi shooting a bow. I don't know if you know who he is or not. There's been a movie made about him and that. But he was a Native American that was the last of his tribe, the Ahe tribe, living around Lansing County in a cave. And he was captured and released a couple of days later to these people from Berkeley who moved down to Berkeley and had an apartment down there, moved into modern day life. And actually he used to sit out in front of the museum and do demonstrations for people and on how to make fires, bows, arrows, arrowheads, etc. One of the things that he brought with him was the Ishi stick. Basically, this is it. All it is a piece of wood with an antler end, the tip end of an antler tied onto the end of it. It could also just be a real long antler. But anyway, this was one tool that he used very much. He made some pretty nice points and had a pretty good notching style too. A little different than most bigger ones in the book there too. Okay, now with an Ishi stick, the idea is it's going to give you about the same kind of flaking as you're going to get from a twist flaker if you use it correctly. Sometimes switching back and forth between the Ishi and the twist flaker on one piece you'll find necessity here now and then about that. Do that. Again, grinding, very important. In the book, I talk about several different ways, several different grinding techniques that can be
employed for different things that you're working on, whether it's notching or fluting, whatever. And it'd be a good section to read there. Okay, now most people, when they do Ishi stick, they hold it up inside their, against their side. Hold the piece in their hand this way to be worked. And build up pressure. Now I'm also using my thigh here, and I'm also using this thigh to get maximum pressure. You push against the edge and pop off a flake. That's one way. That's the way most people do it today. You can also use it just like this. But it's harder. When you get into further extensions of this, longer and longer, you can get into chest crutches where you have like a 1x1 with a 1x2 or something like that, or a 1/2 inch by 2 on top, like a T-form, and for pushing off legs or for a shoulder crutch. Many different things like that can be devised. Anything that you can make up that helps the leverage or helps you get longer, better flicks, more power to you. Okay, now, the way I prefer to work an Ishi stick to what I consider its optimum. This one has a copper tip. They're both good. Copper maybe digs in a little more when you leaves a bigger negative scar at the ball of force area. That's where it's just released from the lithic piece. Whereas an antler may be not dig in as much. But again, like not everybody has access to antlers, and I don't think there's anything wrong with using modern tools unless you're doing certain types of replications that require only Aboriginal type tools to be used. Okay, now I've locked this onto my arm. You want a lot of padding. Now again, the size that is drawn, even if you're just picking up a flake, and when you do, always look for flat flakes, flat on both sides as much as you can. You save yourself a lot of problems. But this should be I think you'll find this a pretty good technique. Now you sort of bury it in this softness so you can hold it upright. Now if you're working a triangular piece, start from the middle of the triangle and work towards the edges. You can also work from the base up, but if you're using this particular technique, you want to start right in the middle of the triangle. So you hold it in here like this. You place the tool against the edge and you press down. Now most of the pressure is going to be back in here. You're not going to feel it. But the face is open here, where it isn't open when you're trying to slam it across this way. The face is open, and you can get a feather termination on it. It should not hinge. So you just place it against the edge like this, and you pop your flake like that. Provides pretty flat flakes, too. Pretty nice flat flakes. You pull towards yourself. Be careful not to ram it into your hands. Okay, the pointed flaker. Getting down there now. This is the tip end of the antlers. All different sizes that you can make. Make them out of copper, make some aluminum nails, regular nails, things like that. Tiny, different size points require different sizes. Okay. Now the whole idea is, if you're pushing straight across the piece, it's like slicing meat. You should be able to slice it that way, straight down.
If you're cutting this way, it's going to slice this way. You're not going to get as much. So the idea is when you want to get the piece, drive it almost straight in, and then when you want to pop your flake, at the point you want to pop your flake, you just have a little upward movement. Okay, now I'm placing this against the edge. Now it's the same thing. You can use your hand like this, or you can just use pressure. I prefer using the whole body into it as much as possible, unless I want to control it. So you push straight in, and when you release your flake, you just release upward. So it's like that, straight in, straight in, straight in. And I'm pushing this piece right towards the antler also. So both are coming towards one another. And just at the point that I say, well, that's the right amount of pressure, up and bring it up. So after a couple hundred of these, you can pretty much, that's what it takes to make an arrowhead. You use a couple hundred pressure flake strokes after banging at it for a while. Can give you one. Some other ones I use, like this copper, very good. Most people today use copper or something like that, to be frank about it. In history, the copper appeared about 7,000 years ago with the old copper culture, Texas, and then up in Minnesota they also had copper so pure that it would just, sitting by a fire, it just smelt out, and then they pounded it in whatever shape they wanted. Even lumps, they used to be able to find lumps of copper. Okay, so this tool and the twist flake are both our shaping tools too. You can start shaping your piece, like forming it as you're going along. Now, if you look here, say like if I'm trying to make a triangle out of this. Okay, there's a wave that sticks out over here. I go right to just about the top of the wave, not quite the top, and work it back and forth from there until it straightens out. Whenever you have a low spot, like in here, work away from the low spot, work up and away, until all this is even, and then you can work off the low spots. This is you have to make both edges come down to meet the same size, the same height as the low spot. Otherwise, you can cause breaks, weird fractures, things like that. Now, there's also you can use blocks of wood with notches in them. Like this has a notch, a V notch, and bigger sizes and smaller ones, just depending on the point. And you can put your pressure flaker in there, and they'll pull off longer flakes that way too. At this stage, it's best to use gloves whenever you're doing anything down like that, because you can easily ram your finger right into an edge, or if it slips off and there's some flake debris laying there, you can run your finger into it. Also, like try to clean off the debris like between strokes, between each flake. If you do, see a lot of times like the person will go 1, 2, 3, 4, and then they'll have this buildup back here of tiny flakes. And what happens is then you try to drive another flake, and it inhibits the actual flow of the flake across the surface. So it's best to try to clean the surface, try to clean the towel or whatever leather, whatever you're using at the time off. Okay, now in tipping a point, once you've got the point made and shaped, like this one is, and you want to put a tip on it, now try to make your tips very sharp and very pointed. Now, I put tiny grooves in the wood here. This is a piece of redwood, and set them in there. Now, the main thing is, though, whether you put the groove or not, you want the surface, the tip itself, to be very firmly placed against the wood. Many people try to make a tip in their hand, and usually you'll see, like, fat little tips on these arrowheads, which they shouldn't be. So what you do is, you place it down like this. Now, you say, there's an imaginary center line drawn on the edge, and you look to see what platforms are sticking to the right and what platforms are sticking to the left of the center edge. Hold the tool like a knife. place your tool against the edge, and if the platform is leaning to the right, go to the right. If it's leaning to the left, take it off the left. Work it down until you have a very fine needle point. I think this is the best tipping method. Now I'm going to demonstrate what's called finish flaking. This was another tool that Leonard Haskell brought forth in his book, The Ancient Art of Making Arrowheads, and I've never really seen anybody else use it. It's quite good. It's the same idea of looking at when we were tipping there, drawing the center line, saying, okay, what's hanging on that side, what's hanging on that side. Whenever you work your finish flaker, it's usually best to work from the base of the point towards the tip. Now, what this is, it's flat on the bottom and slightly curved up. The whole bottom is flat and then slightly curves up. And you can make smaller ones, flatten this part, just flatten it. Now, instead of like picking off the edge or laying it against a surface, either soft or hard, and running it up like many people edge, I think it's better to do it this way. Place your tool down on top, press down straight down into it, and then push to the left. Let's see, like I have this high spot here, okay? Going right on top of it, pushing down until I feel I reach the right pressure, and then my hand just goes over to the left a little bit. And once you've gone all the way up to the top like that, you can turn it over and start back at the bottom. This time I'm facing the tip towards me instead of the base was towards me before. I'm running up the other side. See, last time I went up this way. Now I want to take this off, but I still always like to take it off to the left. So I'll start back at the base again now. Work it up. This is one tool I believe that was used to make those tiny retouch marks on the Lindemark Wellman. And I'm on the other side, same thing. Just pushing down, push down, and push out to the left. Pretty simple. Things shapes up pretty quick. Okay, this is the final technique in fashioning a point. You may have to, once in a while, like if the platform's too big, you may have to go back one tool and take off one flake and then go back to the finish flaker. But anyway, that's the basic idea. Now, notching. And this is an art in itself. There's different tools people can use for notching. Very often, one type of notch is simply to place the tool against the surface at a slight angle, push down, turn it over, go back into the same groove, and cut it in again. Flip it back over, setting it on the same platform, back and forth that way, digging it in. It's rather a crude notching technique, but it is used. You can also punch them out with a small punch or a nail, something like that. Same way that we talked about the punch. Okay, so there's one side. That's one way to notch it. Okay, now, another way is to
take a piece of antler, again, the closest to the skull as possible, and slice it up so it's just this part sticking out of the middle. Relatively sharp too on the bottom. Okay, this tool works wonderfully. Place this right against the edge. Press straight down. Straight down, straight down. Then when you want to release your flake, you push forward a little bit with the tool. Just a bit. So you push down, straight down, and then when you want to release, you push forward. Okay, I'll give you an idea of what this looks like here. Turn it over, go back in the same knot. Now what you can do is, you can take a piece of flint or something, and if you grind in the notch, the direction that you want to take the flake off only. For instance, if I'm going that way, I'm only going to grind that way. It'll firm it up a little bit for the next pull. Now these tools can be made out of copper or aluminum. Okay, this is a piece of copper tubing. I knocked over the top part here, just a little piece of it. You can see what it looks like in your, hold it on top like that. Press down against the edge. When you want to release a flake, push outward, and back and forth like that. Okay. Now I've got a little chart here of notching styles. These are basic styles. This is your wide base, side notch, short base, corner notch, notch above the corner, notch below the corner, basal notch, another basal notch. This is called notch, coming in like that, that would be stemmed. We have some that are just pointed down like that, or like a balsa type like this. This is an ishi notch, where it's very narrow here, then it widens as you go in. This is an E notch, it goes in and then takes off in two directions. Or a dogleg notch comes up and then curves up on itself. These are pretty difficult types. Serrations can also be made with these tools. Same way. Now the idea is, too, when you're notching is, you want to go, you don't want to let your tool wobble back and forth in order to hit the tang or to hit the tang or to hit the barb. You want to keep it steady, straight, pushing down, and only going straight forward or back like that. That's how you can get thin notches. Once you start moving it a little right or left, then you'll knock off a barb or a tang and you won't have as good a notch. There's a type called Cap Creek. Really, really deep notches going way up in. To me, you take an antler and if you make a little hook on the antler, like when you grind it out and you just, or like this little protruding piece, and you can stick that in the notch and then pull. And you can pull off some good notches like that too. I think that's the way the Cap Creek is done myself. The basic technique. Serrations, same thing. You can shape each serration, or you can just leave them the way they come out, like you can shape them to triangular or square. I've seen really big serrations, like on 22-inch points.
with big square serrations, real points. Just give a little space. And you come back on it in the notch groove, in the groove of the serration. Go back the other way. You can take that as many times as you want, back and forth. You can see the serrations are very good now. But anyway, they're quite simple. Now, in the book, there's a couple different ways to notch, a couple different techniques of serrating also, and I would look into those. I'm just trying to give you a general idea of how the tools are used in conjunction with the book. But I think basically, once you start working with it, if you know the right techniques, then you won't have much of a problem there. Okay, that just about does it, except for fluting. And there are several different ways, and we'll go into that at this time. Now, this is a kind of a small glass clovis that I've been working on here. One thing I found out about knapping glass, too, if you just use a piece of wood instead of using antler, flakes come off much better. That's just kind of a tip I found out there. Okay, now the piece is done. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to set up a platform. Now the way you do this, and it's shown in the book, start at the middle and press down and a series of flakes to the edge. Grind it down. So you're starting at the middle of the base and you're working out and you're working out and you're pressing one series down. Okay. Again, do it like 2 times. Now that stroke that we use with the hammerstone of just hitting slight to the left and then slight to the right, slight to the left, it goes right through any tool. It's quite a valuable little technique there. Okay, now I've gone over this twice, and this is the face going to be fluted. The platform angle is sitting about like that. So this whole edge is beveled like that. Now, again, I'll lay it down, this time starting at the corners, and I'll work in. Now what I want to do is, I'm going to remove about 3 flakes from this side and 2 or 3 and 3 flakes from this side, say, and then but I won't remove the very middle flake. Now the very middle one is what the flute's going to come off of. You want to try to flake so you flake right towards the middle, so you get a nice high median ridge running up here on any type of balsam or Clovis, redstone, whatever you're doing. By the way, that forward billet technique I would use for redstone fluting, and I would also use that for the Winnetachi style Clovis. For those of you who don't know what the Winnetachi are, they were just found 1987 in a field up there in Winnetachi, Washington State, and they're the largest Clovis ever found, about 11,000 so odd years old, and up to 9 inches in length and almost 3 inches wide, some of them. Very beautiful pieces of artistic treasure. Okay, so I'm starting towards from the outside and working in. Now, there's several different techniques of fluting. One is pressure fluting, and that's mostly like the leverage type or fluting with the chest crutch. And then there's percussion fluting, which we're going to do today. I think the best ways to do it are in the palm of the hand, which I showed in the book, palm fluting, and there's also step fluting. I believe those should be the two best percussion methods. Also, there's a clamp and anvil technique where you can actually clamp it and knock the flake off. Setting up this platform. Okay. Take your glove. Make sure you have the platform the right size. One thing about it, you don't want to make the platform too big or too small. One way you can knock off a flute is just holding it like this. Squeeze down. And bang. Right on the platform. That's one way. I fluted some like that. You have to make sure that this platform is isolated and sticking out. Should be ground. When you grind the platform, you should grind only opposite the face to be fluted. Like you're going to take it off this face, just grind that way. Polish it up a bit. But okay. Holding it in your hand, you put your hand on the knee, take the punch, set it against the platform firmly, and hold it with your left hand like that. Now, even if you have a real long one or a real small one, you still want this part up close to the top here of your hand. This should work for big or small clovises, anything like that. Now, I've got my angle. Now, when I strike, I'm going to strike a little bit inward towards myself, not straight down, just just a very slight bit in. Okay. If you can see this on the glass, it's up into here, kind of a tiny flute. Setting up the second side fluting. Again, it's best to lay down on a hard surface. Start at the middle and work your way out again. Now, if you happen to chip a false amount of just a piece of quarter-inch glass or something like that, you may want to bring your platform. You may want to platform out like. Do this twice, like we just did, and then push one little series of flakes back the other way before you set it up and knock it off. That's usually because the surface is too flat. It may not carry the flakes, so you set the platform just a little further back. Now, as you go along, you'll find out that if there is a low spot on the surface of the piece, then the flute will narrow. If there's a high spot, maybe it'll widen out. Things like that, you'll see it more and more you flute. Okay, again, working from the edges in towards the center, take off about 3 or 4 flakes on each side, and finally what you'll have one flake remaining right in the middle, which will be your platform. And it's from that platform that this flute's going to come off. Again, grind away from the surface to be fluted. Set your tool. Well, in fact, I'll show you another technique here. Do this. This is called step fluting. Now, it's best if you have another small piece of wood would do on top here, like a piece of small thin plywood. The idea is to isolate the preform so it does not move. That's the main thing. If it's glass or obsidian, you can do it on wood. But if it's not, if it's a flint or something, it's better to use a stone on the bottom, some kind of a stone, and that's illustrated in the book also. The idea is to immobilize the preform, set your punch, pop off your flute.
There's the food flake. Focus in on there. Good, very good. You see it carries just about the halfway mark here. Pretty good flute.
Okay, the other type of fluting. Okay, falsums. In fluting a falsum, basically, for percussion, I use step fluting that we just did over there. And I do not usually retouch after I make the falsum. I usually make the whole falsum and point it very well, and then grind the tip always, and then pop off the flute. That's just the way I do it. Some people do it different ways. Some people like to retouch afterwards. I think it gives a false impression of certain types of falsums, but it's just a matter of opinion. Now this is a little device. Basically what it is, it's a piece of wood. You can tie you can tie this on here, and you can set the point in here. Now this is the fluter. It's sort of again the solid end of the antler squared off. I have it drawn in the book. But anyway, the idea here is leverage, put pressure, no matter how you do it. And the tool is placed down here, pulled this way. The flute will come off underneath. Same thing. This is the same idea. This is the way, if I'm doing a Lindemeyer, this is the way I do it. You lock your falsum, tie it up real good between a split piece. Then you make it so that this fits right between, right in here. Put your fulcrum stick underneath, tie it on very solid. And you come back up with your fluter, same technique. Dorset, point, same way. I don't know if you can see these, but on the Dorset, the tip, you flute from the tip on down on both sides coming that way. It's the same thing. It's held like this and manipulate against the background with some kind of a block stick and pulled off. More about those is written in the book. Here's another thing you can do. You can make a little device like this. The fulcrum block slides back and forth like this. You have your stop block. You place your point in here, run it up wherever you want. It's the same principle as both of these. Lock it up and pull it off. Or if you want to clamp it, you can clamp it here. any kind of device like this. DC Waldorf's got some, Buddy Spilly's got some. Buddy Spilly uses a bottle cap machine. They used to pop off some flutes with that. So whatever's good. Also, this guy Dick Crone mentioned it with his Cumberland fluter for 5 years. He's been holding them with basswood with leather like this. He sets up a high, sharp platform, isolates it, and uses 12-ounce billet and pops them off. So there's all kinds of different ways. I would highly recommend getting into fluting because it's a lot of fun.
This is an original Cochise point. It's 11,000 years old. This particular point is about maybe 9,000. It's in the Plano complex. You have Paleo, Plano. Then in here, these are all real points. The larger ones are mostly archaic, going from about 8,000 to about 3,000 years ago. And then starting about 2,500 years or 3,000 years ago, then you start with smaller points because that's when the spear was left behind and everybody started using the bow. This is a falsum I have here that I made. It's about 2.5 inches each side, fluted to the tip. And this is fig wood foreshaft with fig bark. The foreshafting was used in arrows and bows. Here, you can get a picture of this too. This bow. This bow was made by our friend Cliff Moda, who's doing the photography today. There's a change in time where you had thousands of years where they're hunting with this. The reason that they foreshaft it too is it's easy to carry the shafts, but they also find that when they stick in the animals, it sticks, and the shaft itself will, main part of the spear will bounce back, and you can reload it real easy, about 20 feet back. Addle was used throughout the most of this period of time, still used today in some parts of the world. Basically, it's just spear thrower is what it means, hooked into the back. And the increased pressure, tests that have been done show that the increased pressure is 200 to 500 times the amount of power generated by a person just throwing the spear. Okay, and basically that's about it. The rest of the points are some different ones, effigies, things that I've made over the time.